you from the Hudson Media Group studio. This is Talking Politics. And yes, I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist, top 100 Latino via the Latino Spirit Online magazine, and certainly the Garden State's most beloved and factually accurate conservative. Yes, it's me, Fernando Uribe. Hoping you all had a wonderful Father's Day weekend. As always, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot to discuss, so let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Now, a special shout out to the great work at the Jersey Journal, and specifically to Jake Marr for a story that really caught my attention. And the title goes as this: Under the Radar, Hudson County gun owners arm up for self-defense. So let me give you some details here to really unpackage why this story is so significant. So Anna Serrato is arming herself. For more than 6 months, the North Bergen resident has been gathering the materials she'll need to apply for a gun permit. And the decision came after she witnessed a Black Lives Matter protest in the fall of 2020 while waiting for a bus in Times Square near her workplace. People participating in the protest, to no one's surprise, saw it as a march of justice, but Serrato, like myself, sees it as something different. She wanted to say, quote, "These protesters, people who were burning things down, were screaming in my face, and it was so violent. I've been born and raised in this area my whole life, and I've seen New York in many different conditions, and now I'm seeing this, and it's getting really dangerous around here." Now, while the Emperor, Governor Phil Murphy, and others talk about making it harder for New Jerseyans to buy guns, some Hudson County residents are still eager to buy them, and most often the reason that they give for doing so is self-defense. For example, data has shown that the new applications for gun permits are up across New Jersey. Although the state police doesn't break it down by county, the data does suggest that gun sellers in Hudson County are reporting higher than average sales. So, for example, Kevin Guadaris, the owner of Long Shot Pistol and Rifle, a shooting range and gun store in Secaucus, said he has seen record sales the last few years, and about half of buyers are first-time buyers. Also, his training school's most popular course is, quote, the beginner pistol, which is mostly offered to first-time gun owners. Now, self-defense, whether from unrest like Serrato referred to, from street crime, or from the mass shootings that have characterized, again, according to some, American gun culture, is the most common reason that Hudson County residents and gun owners specifically cite for wanting to be armed. So, for example, to Dan Bono of Journal Square, the police response to the shooting in Uvalde, in which officers on the scene waited to respond to a shooting, demonstrated a lesson. Your protection is up to you. Now, Bono brought a small rifle for self-defense with him when he moved to Journal Square from Spanish Harlem in 1994. I mean, who can blame him? You're going from Spanish Harlem to Journal Square, arguably two areas that you can call a dump. But in any event, in the years since, he has added more weapons to his collection, including smaller guns that his wife can also use. In an urban blue area like Hudson County, though, folks, openly owning a gun can come with social risks. Bono, a self-described libertarian, said what sets him apart from his friends in Jersey City is that he actually owns guns legally. He has convinced some of them to go shooting at the range with him. Others, he has said, don't even want to touch a gun altogether. But despite the local atmosphere around gun control and despite mounting pressure nationally to act to ultimately prevent shootings like what happened in Uvalde, Texas, most Hudson County residents don't back down when it comes to gun rights. And folks, this is where this article, again, great job by Jake Marr with the Jersey Journal in talking about this story, because, it is significant, ladies and gentlemen. And while we've seen the gun culture in the United States really is different depending on the area that you live in, regardless of the fact, someone like myself, who is a strict constitutionalist and believes in the Second Amendment, again, shall not be infringed. That's a very important sentence that's contained in the Second Amendment. And I get it that people want to sort of, masquerade around with what the Second Amendment is. But folks, again, and let me just read this to you, because for a lot of you out there, again, for those, especially those on the left in Hudson County, you've never read the Constitution, and it shows by some of your social media, right? But let me read you again what it says very simply. A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed. Folks, I'm not an English professor. I'm a history professor. But I know enough that commas separate different thoughts and sentences in a paragraph, and that's what this is doing here. Now, I'm not going to touch the regulated militia aspect, but the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. That is clear. All right? Now, do I believe that we should be the Wild Wild West? Of course not, folks. I believe in responsible gun ownership. I'm someone who goes shooting, so I believe in it. But the idea that those on the left here in Hudson County or statewide or even nationally want to really restrict responsible gun ownership is dangerous. Okay? Now, whether it's states like Florida with, open carry, well, concealed carry, right? And open carry in Texas, for example. No one's saying that New Jersey has to follow that suit. But folks, there are plenty of New Jerseyans that, while they support the police like I do, take it upon themselves to arm themselves when it comes to self-defense. Listen, we don't all live in great neighborhoods, ladies and gentlemen. Let's not be myopic about this, okay? Not everybody lives in Paramus or Parsippany, okay? A lot of people live in Patterson and Newark and parts of Jersey City and Trenton and Camden and Plainfield and Elizabeth. Guess what? Those aren't great areas. And the problem is that here in New Jersey, whether it's those on the far left in the legislature or even Governor Phil Murphy himself, folks, this is the thing. Just like abortion, like I've talked about for weeks on end here, gun ownership is very difficult here in the Garden State. Democrats on the left have made it extremely sort of obstacle-filled when it comes to be able to own a firearm legally. People can wait even more than a full calendar year to apply for a gun ID and even to be able to get the ownership altogether. Again, it's not because the state police is dragging their feet. It's just because the legislature and Governor Murphy want to grandstand on this issue, okay? Just like I've talked about illegal drugs, folks. For over 40 years, we have fought a war on drugs that has been an absolute failure. If you want to get high and you want to buy drugs illegally, you can find a way. You'll get a way. The same thing with firearms, folks. If you want to buy a gun illegally, guess what? If you have the means and you have the ends, you'll find a way to purchase a firearm illegally. So it's the same premise that, well, you know, we've been trying to keep certain drugs illegal for 40 years. That hasn't worked, folks. You want to get your fix when it comes to heroin or cocaine or other harder drugs, you can find them. Well, guess what? If you want to be able to buy a weapon illegally, you can do that too. Because ultimately, folks, criminals who want to engage in criminality, they're not going to follow the rules. They're not going to follow the law. So when it comes to the left in New Jersey or even nationally, it talks about guns. Well, we have to restrict guns. Well, there are enough gun laws on the books that restrict gun ownership to begin with. Anybody care to take a look at what happens in Illinois over the weekend? Folks, Chicago has multiple shootings every single weekend, and they're by people of color against people of color. And guess what? Arguably, Chicago has perhaps the strictest gun laws anywhere in the continental United States, next to New York City, and of course here in the state of New Jersey. But does the liberal mainstream media talk about that? Of course not, because that will require them to have integrity. You know that four-syllable word, integrity? Yeah, a lot of them don't have that. Just like many on the left that oppose responsible gun ownership. Folks, it's responsible gun owners. They're the ones that are trying to keep the argument civil and create discourse. Okay? The problem are people that go and purchase guns illegally and engage in illegal practices. Are we going to stop every mass shooting in the United States? Of course not. And it's tragic that we can't. Just like we can't stop the inflow of drugs from Canada, from Mexico, or from overseas. Folks, those are the realities about our borders and the way that things are trafficked. It's the same thing here. Now, for Hudson County residents that wish to purchase a firearm and protect their homes, God bless you all. There's nothing wrong with that. You shouldn't be vilified, and if anything, any vitriol that's levied against you, I think is unwarranted. So for gun owners that were referenced in Jake Marr's column, good for you. Hey, listen, like that woman that had to deal with the summer of love. Remember the summer of peaceful protest in 2020, right? Where BLM looted and destroyed public and private property in the total of millions of dollars, right? In the name of social justice. Well, guess what? It's not because black people alarm everybody. No, it's about miscreants and derelicts that are making it bad when it comes to areas that we live in. And we should arm ourselves and protect ourselves. That's not a bad thing. But try telling that to someone on the left. Because again, when it comes to, constitutional arguments or valid arguments, they're as myopic as it comes. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. During this week's edition of the 5-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, which coincidentally you can listen to every single week via www.blogtalkradio.com/talkingthehudson, and you can do so from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet. Episodes are free, and you listen to them anywhere and anytime. And this week's guest was my monthly regular, Jersey City Councilwoman at Large, Amy DeGise. We spoke for over an hour on a plethora of different topics, and here are some highlights for your consideration. First and foremost, we talked about the ongoing debate as it pertains to Liberty State Park. It seems like everybody has an opinion, whether it's legislators, council people, activists, community organizers, or even anybody on social media. Everyone seems to have an opinion about what should be done with Liberty State Park. Let's hear what Amy had to say about it.
Liberty State Park is one of those topics that has just been in the news cycle. Everyone seems to have an opinion, from elected officials to community organizers, to activists and journalists. It seems like this issue is not going away because Liberty State Park, again, is sacred to residents, but not everybody agrees about what should happen with Liberty State Park. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, oh yeah, and it's two very different kind of perspectives on it too, and two equally fiery groups.
Well, when we talk about that, I mean, is it more about keeping the sanctity of Liberty State Park, Amy, or is it about, hey, like other, pieces of land, maybe some modifications, maybe make it more touristy friendly? I mean, is this some of the rhetoric you're hearing in Jersey City, especially in the city council?
Yeah, and I mean, this started, probably over a decade ago, of people really kind of debating, sorry, an ambulance going near me, people really debating on how much of this park should be privatized or developed. And what kind of happened there was a lot of things were not well maintained, and a lot of the land does need remediation. It lacks some athletic fields and community spaces. So I think that the bill that was presented by Senator Stack really kind of opens the door to exploring those options, and it establishes a 17-member task force that would, speak out with the community and the Department of Environmental Protection to make sure that, everybody is kind of handling this the right way. But the Friends of Liberty State Park and the people who do not want to see any type of privatization or development, they are welcoming towards the improvements, but afraid that it will open the door for some revenue generators. And that's what people, I think, are nervous about. We understand that if you do provide upgrades to the park, you have to maintain them, and that's going to cost money. So you may want something that will generate revenue, but do you want a theater, a stadium, an arena? Do you want something that's going to attract shows and big names? And that's, what's being debated. Some people would welcome it because they feel that the revenue could generate so much free recreational space for people in the city and people who travel here. And others say, no, it's actually going to take away some of those free amenities because they're going to need parking lots and they're going to want to build these big, ugly things on land that should be kind of conserved.
Secondly, we talked about the ongoing debate as it pertains to recreational cannabis. As we all know, ladies and gentlemen, dispensaries are opening up all over the Garden State, even as nearby as in Bergen County. Now, as we are aware here in Hudson County, the only dispensary that's available thus far is a medicinal one, and that's in Secaucus. But municipalities all over Hudson County are sort of vying to see which one will ultimately be the new home for the next dispensary. And especially in Jersey City, there's no shortage of opinions as to whether or not this will be a moneymaker in Hudson County's largest city. Let's hear what Amy had to say about it.
Let's switch gears to some city council business here, Amy, because and I know we talked about it a little bit yesterday, but again, there's a different audience here, so I think from a more local perspective, recreational cannabis continues to generate a lot of debate. We're seeing some of what's going on in Hoboken, some allegations of who's going to be owning a property potentially there that will host a dispensary. We have a councilman in Hoboken apparently at odds with Mayor Fulop's wife, or that drama that seems to be going on. That measure was tabled, I think, until August. It seems like everybody wants to weigh in on dispensaries. And listen, again, I don't have a dog in this fight because I've never smoked marijuana. I don't care to. I'm never going to do that. But I understand that there is a market for it. I understand that people enjoy it. That's fine. God bless you. But my issue is, how do you come to an agreement in such a densely populated city? Because, again, it seems like somewhere like Jersey City downtown, it looks like a gold mine for people across the river. They can just cross, take the path, or jump in their car and come to New Jersey and say, well, hey, we can't do anything in New York yet, but let's go to New Jersey and buy because there's dispensaries. Well, it's not like there's an abundance of them, Amy. I mean, case in point, up here in North Hudson where I live, there are mayors that specifically implemented and passed ordinances years ago, maybe because they anticipated this becoming eventually an issue. But you can't open a recreational dispensary in Weehawken or in Union City or in Secaucus. Coincidentally, the only medicinal marijuana dispensary is in Secaucus, But these are towns in North Hudson that have passed ordinances forbidding recreational dispensaries. Again, there are dozens of towns all on the shore, Central, South Jersey, that have done the same thing. Clearly, Jersey doesn't feel that way. But how do you, I mean, I don't mean you specifically, but generically as a question, how do you, tackle this problem where, again, it's such a densely populated area? You can't have it near schools, obviously. This is for the same reason you can't have liquor stores near schools. But that seems to be an argument that's dying down a lot.
Yeah, definitely. In the Jersey City, they're obviously following all of the state statutes with, in regards to distance to things and, how things have to be operated. But when they initiated the Cannabis Control Advisory Board, they also put on their own, kind of contingencies and what they needed to see to give you municipal approval. And you can't file for state approval without Jersey City's approval. And, and I said this yesterday when we spoke, as an educator, when you're starting off in the classroom at the beginning of the year, you can be really strict because you can always kind of lighten up, but you can never start, as the teacher is going to let you get away with everything and then try and get strict. The students would never have that. So what I think Jersey City is doing is they understand it's inevitable. They understand that it could impact the economy in a really positive way. And they're also combating stores that are illegally selling things. So they do want to have a process. And it is very strict. I've been through some of those meetings. They're held really well. They talk a lot about the workforce development, and making sure that people who have records because of marijuana will have a priority in getting work, and have priority in getting some sort of educational training and, outreach to the community to help expunge records and really clean up people's reputations. And they also want to know what nonprofits, you're giving back to or you're going to work with. And I think that's really conscious. That wasn't anything that's outlined in the state plan. It's recommended but not mandated. And I think that it's a really smart move for Jersey City to be that strict, kind of knowing that they're going to have it. There was a lot of questions being asked on the security, making sure these places are going to have 24/7, actual security, not just cameras. And really, again, the Jersey City folk are going to stop by like they're stopping at Wonder Bagels for a bagel and a cup of coffee and go home. But people coming from the city or another county because their city doesn't have, any dispensaries, are they going to linger here? Are they going to, just kind of cause havoc or, somehow, just not be up to any good? So I think they are taking good steps in that. I'm happy that Jersey City is welcoming the dispensaries, not be up to any good.
Once again, you can listen to the episode in its entirety by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/talkinthehudson. Recent interviews have included Tap Into Jersey City columnist Al Sullivan, real estate developer Jose Rodriguez, and of course, Jersey City Councilwoman Amy DeGise. All these exclusives and much more are always available, once again, at www.blogtalkradio.com/talkinthehudson. You can listen to it from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet. And now some local stories here in New Jersey for your attention. Now, special thank you to Steve Lennox with Tap Into Jersey City for a story that just blew my mind about how absurd this is. But apparently, New Jersey teenagers are promoting a bill to enable 16-year-olds to vote in local elections, which I think is madness. Again, a shout out to Elise Philip Margilis from Tap Into Jersey City for her report on this story. Now, apparently coming out of Livingston, New Jersey, Eric Breckman and Lucas Zhu, rising seniors at Livingston High School and co-presidents of, wait for it, here comes a surprise, the Livingston High School Young Democrats Club, are currently collaborating with Westfield Councilman David Contract through a nonpartisan initiative called Vote 16NJ to add an amendment to the New Jersey State Constitution that will allow 16 and 17-year-olds to vote in local elections. Quote, members of the Westfield Democrats Club, like sophomore Inikani Hu, knew about our position, and Westfield Councilman David Contract reached out to us to ask if we want to get involved. After meeting with them, we were very interested in helping them since it seems like a good bill that has an uphill yet reasonable chance of getting passed. Hu and Contract joined forces over the summer after Contract's teenage son, who assisted in his election campaign, what a coincidence, expressed disappointment in not being able to vote for his father during the election. Vote 16 NJ currently has 20 student volunteers from approximately 10 municipalities recruiting supporters and is quickly growing, according to Zoo, in the Garden State. Folks, I couldn't think of a worse idea, okay? I don't know about you. I know 26-year-olds that shouldn't be able to vote, all right? But that's another story for another day. Folks, when it comes to 16 and 17-year-olds, I mean, there's a reason why in the Constitution it explicitly says 18 years of age. Now, again, whether or not that constitutes adulthood, we can debate that for another show, ladies and gentlemen, but there's a reason that's there, okay? We don't send 16, 17-year-olds to war. We don't allow them to go to college unless they're academically gifted, of course. But folks, what's really, really interesting, again, leave it to Democrats and young Democrats clubs to try to infringe upon the voting process. It's always funny, though. They're always talking about, Republicans and conservatives are always trying to infringe upon voting rights. No, we want to make sure that voting remains legitimate. And I don't know about you, but giving a 16-year-old and a 17-year-old the ability to vote, I'm sorry, that's just something that doesn't make any sense to me. For the most part, do you remember when you were 16 and 17 years old? Yeah, I was pretty much, a kid in high school, horny as hell, and looking to just be a kid. I'm not sure exactly my mindset was set upon local electoral politics. Now, it's not to sort of paint with a broad brush and say that young children at that age can't decipher what's good policy and what's not, but let kids be kids, okay? When they graduate high school, move on to college or trade school or decide to join one of the branches of the armed forces, yeah, that's when I feel they can vote. But being able to do that, folks, where do you cut it off? Okay? Once you open it up, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. And that's the problem with people on the left because, right, isn't this the same group of people, especially in the same party that talks about science and, well, yeah, kids can change their gender. And kids, as young as 9, they know enough already to change their gender or explore, their orientation. Folks, this is the madness of the left, okay? They want to just take everything away from childhood, and this is just another example. Why stop at 16 and 17 years old? Why not 14? Why not 13? Why not let 10-year-olds vote in elections? You know why we don't do that? Because they don't know. All right? So, of course, if you remember during the presidential campaign of 2020, right? Remember, in the primaries leading up to that, remember Kamala Harris, the laughing hyena that we now have as a vice president? Remember she was talking about, hey, maybe 16-year-olds should be able to vote. No, Kamala, whatever your name is. No, they shouldn't be able to vote. They're kids. Okay? Yeah, they're emotional and just like everybody else, but guess what? Let kids be kids. Let them go through childhood. Let them go through adolescence. And if they want to be involved in the electoral process, they can do that at the age of 18. Because trust me, folks, it's groups like this, whether it's in Livingston or other municipalities in New Jersey, that won't stop at this specific, variable. They'll just say, again, why not 15? Why not 14? No, leave it at 18 like it's worked for so long. Again, the left, folks, it's really interesting what they want to pride themselves on when it comes to tradition or things that are constitutional. Again, listen, I'm not going to tell a town how to rule, but if I were parents and if I were taxpayers in that town, I would raise as much hell as possible because the last thing we need are 16-year-olds voting on property taxes, school boards, or anything else when they can barely decide what they want with their coffee or what they want for their morning cereal. Here in Jersey City, though, Hudson County Community College is going to be hosting a very insightful event along with Canada Mix coming up this week, as a matter of fact. It'll be a day-long event called the Cannabis Culture of New Jersey, a community cannabis conversation. Now, it's a free event that will be taking place this week at Hudson County Community College at the Culinary Conference Center right near Journal Square. Now, Hudson County Community College President Dr. Christopher Uribe and Canada Mix Chief Executive Officer and Founder Josh Alb will deliver welcoming remarks to those in attendance. Event highlights will include a day-long expungement clinic presented by the Hoffman Centers, PC, and the Emerge Law Group. Culinary infusion demonstrations will also be included with Hudson County Community College continuing education instructor Sean Wilson. We'll have a mocktail bar there for demonstration purposes, a networking room, a photo station, a community donation center, and free food and beverages along with a live stream during the event itself. There will be many panel discussions for the community and for industry leaders to be able to opine. They'll include educating our community with Jessica Gonzalez, attorney at law, as well as organizations that include the Students for Sensible Drug Policy, as well as the Hudson County Community College Associate Dean of Business in the Culinary Arts and Hospitality Management, Dr. Ara Karkashian, as well as the Cannabis Business Experience, as well as Cannabis and the Culinary Arts. Folks, listen, I am someone, again, having worked in the criminal justice system for 10 years before entering academia, I saw firsthand the just detrimental effects about what our marijuana laws used to be, especially on people of color, right? Because as we all know, white people, black people, and brown people all smoke marijuana comparably at the same rates. But one demographic was getting institutionalized more than others. Again, folks, I don't want to sound like your typical social justice clown, because that's not the point of this monologue. It's more about understanding that cannabis is a reality in New Jersey. Now, I've never smoked marijuana. I never have, and I never will. It's not something that's really interesting to me. Give me a good glass of wine, a nice Cabernet, or a nice Malbec, or give me a good Guinness, or a good IPA. That's how I relax and unwind after a very stressful week. But you know what? For those that like recreational cannabis, good for you. And I'm glad that you're no longer going to be incarcerated for using it and smoking it for whatever purposes, whether it's for medicinal reasons or just for relaxation. I respect that. Okay? And when you see institutions of learning like Hudson County Community College wanting to have a very insightful event like this, I think it goes a long way, ladies and gentlemen, in helping inform the community about something that just isn't going away. We know that during the election of 2020, we saw firsthand that New Jerseyans overwhelmingly voted to make cannabis recreationally legal here in the state of New Jersey. Again, there's debates about dispensaries, where we want them, where we don't want them. Right here in Hudson County, for example, municipalities like Union City, Weehawken, and Secaucus, coincidentally, since it's also the host of the only medicinal dispensary available here, all pass ordinances within their forms of government to forbid any recreational dispensaries from opening. Now, what West New York, Guttenberg, North Bergen, Kearney, and even Jersey City are going to do, again, remains up in the air. But when you're seeing great events like this hosted by Hudson County Community College, ladies and gentlemen, it goes a long way in helping to inform the community. Because let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen, there's still a stigma about marijuana. Okay? I'm Hispanic, and for all of you out there that are or are not, there was a point in time during our upbringing, right, during childhood or during adolescence, that marijuana had that stigma. Ooh, if you smoked marijuana, you were this. Or if you sold marijuana, you were that. I understand, ladies and gentlemen, those are things that we all had to deal with. But when it comes to marijuana now, listen, it's legal, it's recreational. Clearly, it's a moneymaker for municipalities all throughout New Jersey that have opened dispensaries. Now, how those revenues are used and whether or not it's used responsibly at the local level and legislatively in Trenton remains to be seen. Let's be honest, folks. The legislature, they've never met a tax that they've never loved. And believe me, they spend money like a bunch of bachelors during a bachelor party in Vegas. Nothing against bachelors in Vegas because, yeah, I'm one and, I do that all the time. But when you expect the legislature to spend responsibly, that's something that seems to be a little bit, unforeseen and unrealistic, lately. But folks, goes a long way in educating the public and making sure that we become more acclimated and understanding that marijuana is here, it's here to stay, and it's not going anywhere. And that's our show for this week. To check out all the excellent programming brought to you by the Hudson Media Group, check out their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com, as well as www.livestream.com/hmgtv, and also check out the Hudson Media Group on their YouTube page. Make sure you like them on Facebook and follow them on both Instagram and Twitter. Don't forget, new episodes of Talking the Hudson, the 5-time award-winning podcast that's available every week on Blog Talk Radio, is available free of charge and to listen to anywhere and anytime by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/TalkingTheHudson. Folks, 5 years and counting, 5 awards and counting. This podcast remains the most popular form of information for local residents in Hudson County. Make sure you like Talking the Hudson on Facebook and also follow it on Instagram. Don't forget to follow Talking Politics with Fernando Uribe on Instagram at Talking Politics with Fernando Uribe. And also follow my own Instagram at NoFilterUribe. And also hit me up on Twitter at the same handle at NoFilterUribe. That's at NoFilter, URIBE. Make sure you like Talking Politics with Fernando Uribe on Facebook as well. And always remember, ladies and gentlemen, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always Talking Politics right here with the Hudson Media Group. I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist, top 100 Latino, via the Latino Spirit online magazine for 2020, 2021, and now in 2022, and also the Garden State's most beloved and factually accurate conservative, Fernando Uribe, saying so long, and thank you so much for watching.